Why was Logan's clone X-24 grown and stored in pieces? How could Xander Rice benefit from it? And what fascinating details are there in X-24's behavior and anatomy? You'll find answers to these questions in this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and support the video with your likes and comments. This is very important for me. Enjoy! Xander Rice never succeeded in creating completely controllable and unquestioning super slaves. Somewhere around 10 years prior to the events shown in Logan, he decided that it was much more effective to raise super slaves from their cradles. As a result, dozens of Mexican women died giving birth to the future generation of super soldiers. The most known of this bunch for us is, of course, Logan's biological daughter, Laura. This video, secretly recorded by Gabriella, the one that Logan will be watching in his limousine, shows us the death of these women in childbirth. Based on what we see here, children were literally extracted from women in a brutal way. But what couldn't be nurtured in the generation of super soldiers is the rage which Xander Rice needed so much. He could consider these children a product with copyright all you wanted, but as long as they get the chance to feel an iota of their mother's care, at least from time to time, they will remain children. And thanks to people like Gabriella, and at the cost of their lives, these children will never become what Xander Rice wanted them to be. So at some point, Xander Rice decides that one cannot simply breed rage in defiance to morals. It needs to be created from the very beginning. This is how the embodiment of Logan's pure rage is born, X-24. The embodiment of what William Stryker wanted Logan to be, and perhaps the embodiment of what he could have become someday, if we look at Logan's story from Deadpool 3. Stryker, by the way, was in all respects much more successful when it came to subjugating mutants. And of course, he managed to do that not without using his son's genome. And although X-24 clearly has too much in the way of rage, which certainly satisfies Rice, there are problems with unquestioning obedience. Anything that distracts the attention of X-24 immediately risks jeopardizing the entire mission. It's quite funny actually how the main negative trait of X-24, for Rice of course, is his curiosity. Yes, that's right, curiosity. Remember, when the clone goes to the farmer's house to kill Xavier and kidnap Laura, he gives Xavier the opportunity to speak before his death. Yeah, for us as the viewers, this is an important dramatic moment that reveals much about Xavier and his attitude to Logan, for whom he mistook the clone. But from a logical point of view, why would the clone, who is essentially a biorobot, let Xavier speak? The thing is that X-24 did not expect that the old man, whom he, following Rice's order, was supposed to kill in his sleep, would start talking. And he showed curiosity listening to Xavier. And it doesn't really matter whether X-24 understood anything from Xavier's words or not. Going down the stairs with Laura, the clone bumps into Logan and wastes precious time on something he totally shouldn't have, namely looking at Logan, showing curiosity again, which shocks the latter. When X-24 leaves the house, something that threatens the success of the mission the most, and what Rice had been worrying about, happens. Some cars drive up to the house and they distract the clone's attention. Moreover, those same guys with whom Logan had recently had a quarrel stick their heads out of them. They also confuse the clone for him, and they do the one thing that's strictly forbidden to do to a clone, cause him to engage in a social interaction, for lack of a better word. But since the only social skill that X-24 has been taught is aggression and rage, it's not hard to guess how this encounter ended for the gang. Yeah, on second thought, aggression and rage can hardly be called social skills, although perhaps people like Rice have their own ideas on this matter. What is important is that only Logan can defeat Logan, and had the father of the deceased family not intervened, the death of Logan from this universe could have happened here, right at the farm. But we learn a couple more things about the clone from the first time they meet with Logan. The main thing is that even Logan's genetic double is not able to compete with him in terms of survivability. Of course, if you compare him to Prime Logan at the peak of his strength and shape, the regeneration of the double is limited. If the damage done to him is significant, which by Logan's own standards would be considered a mere trifle, his regeneration will not cope with it on its own, without pharmacological support, that is. But most likely Xander Rice built this drawback into his creation intentionally. He understands that X-24 is not that easy to control, so it's dangerous to leave him, so to speak, with an inexhaustible supply of strength. strength. And here we move on to probably the most interesting thing related to the topic of this video, namely how X-24 was created, or rather the entire category of super soldiers designated X-24. It was planned to create way more of them than just one, and the footage that we'll analyze further will only confirm this. We see it again from Gabriella's secret video recordings that Logan watches. The most important and most interesting detail is, of course, that X-24 was grown and stored in pieces. Yes, here we can clearly see his left forearm, his entire right arm, his right leg, and even his face. Yeah, the face of X-24, but in this case without a chin. Apparently this is the way Rice tried to give the clone individual facial features. In the theater version of the film, the double's nose shape is different from the original. So why did Rice need to grow X-24 in pieces? I can think of several reasons. First, as we've already said, X-24 is a whole series of super soldiers, and this series of super soldiers are biorobots. Biorobots, which unlike the original, have limited regeneration abilities. This means having a set of spare parts for them may come in handy. Second, it may be about the transportation of super soldiers. Actually, pay attention to the incubator where the body parts for X-24s are grown and stored. Notice anything wrong here? Right, polypropylene plumbing pipes are used here. Isn't it too simple, I guess, for a high-tech incubator where the most advanced bioweapons in the world are grown? Yes, it's rather simple, but there's a good reason for that. Namely, the need to assemble and disassemble the incubators quickly. This is useful for Rice since his laboratory needs to move often. We remember that what he does is illegal, and he does not have the patronage of the army, which, by the way, Stryker had. So moving is not a rare thing for him, and for the same reason it's more effective to transport biorobots disassembled. And in addition, this way it's much easier to hide them from prying eyes. The third reason for growing clones in parts is the procedure of adamantium implantation into the clones' bodies. If you look closely at the visualization on the laboratory computers, you'll see that these parts of the clones' bodies do not yet have adamantium inside, or at least some parts of the bodies don't have it. This visualization also tells us that the clones' forearms initially don't have organic claws. In this regard, the film follows the very first installment of the X-Men franchise, where Logan was born without any claws at all and Stryker made him adamantium ones from scratch. This is, in my opinion, a wonderful detail of Logan's anatomy, which was unfortunately and unfairly wasted with the development of the franchise. Rice did not provide organic claws for the clone, since it should be easier to make adamantium claws from scratch and just surgically implant them than to remove the old ones first or cover them with adamantium. Laura, by the way, had her claws from birth. Xavier mentioned this. And why do we see just a forearm here and a whole arm here? Correct, because it's easier for Rice to insert the claws into the forearm first and then assemble the whole arm. Here we see that Rice has just recently attached the clone's foot to the shin, and this hints to us that X-24s may have claws in their feet, just like Laura. Well, if not that one, then the others. It is also easier to introduce adamantium into each body part separately and then assemble the whole skeleton. In particular, this is due to the difficulties of strengthening the connective tissues, joints, ligaments, tendons, etc. Yes, I'm talking as if I were an adamantium implantation specialist. And the last, and in my opinion the most banal reason for growing and storing X-24s in pieces is that they are not controllable enough, which again we are convinced of during the film, and keeping them assembled can simply be dangerous for their creator. But one way or another, the story of X-24 is not the story of a biological construction set. This is a story telling us that not everything is able to find peace. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, support it with your likes and comments. This is very important for me. And see ya!